Hey guys, it's Prince Rich with Rich Technology Group, and I am also joined by my wonderful co-host, Sunita Allister. What's going on with you today, Sunita?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm ready to talk to you about this comment that I saw on YouTube. I'll tag the
Mm-hmm.
video above, but we did our annual review for Vonage for their business phone system for 2023. And one of the comments, which if I can, I'll get my editor to post it here. The person said something to the effect of Vonage business. Don't you mean vintage business? Come on, man. This isn't the 90s. Nobody uses Vonage anymore. It was something like that he said. And,
Mm-hmm.
and you and I are going to discuss this, but we're not going to just totally take favor on Vonage's side. We're going to talk constructively here. Like, is Vonage old school? Are they not old school? Are they behind the times? Because I feel like that's what this viewer was implying, was basically, he was essentially implying, like, hey
Mm-hmm.
man, what are you doing? Why are you talking about Vonage? Vonage is old school. Nobody uses them anymore. Now, you and I
Right.
both know that's not true. So let's talk about
Mm.
this. Before I get into it, what's your honest opinions on the comment in relation to Vonage?
All right. The reason I'm just smiling a lot is just like, man, no offense, but literally, why you guys are so obsessed with something like, okay, today's thing. I mean, literally,
Yeah,
vintage doesn't always means that somebody is in the business for like 20 or 30 years. That means valid. That means they know everything, and that actually means we are not vintage. We know something. We are still here with the experience, with lot of everything we have gone through, everything we have learned over the years. If you say about something new, who actually makes everything new? The teenagers, the so-called millennials, the so-called Gen Z? No, these are those vintage people like from the 80s and 90s who are doing such thing, right? Creating the apps for you, creating every kind of editing apps and all
yeah.
these Snapchats and doing the Facebook stuff. What do you think that Mark's age is, who is just handling the Facebook and who is the owner of the Google and how they're actually working? Is everything vintage? Then how it's working good for you? So it's just like everything in the market, the TikTok and everything you're just kind of, enjoying right now. It's not
Yeah,
made by, or it's not like literally introduced by the teenagers or Gen Z or something like that. There can be new people who are in the
yeah,
market who can be working with some brilliant brains, with some great and bright ideas, but
yeah,
like,
like new and
literally
innovative, fresh ideas,
throwing,
as we call it.
exactly, but literally throwing away the past and just staying like here and just it's all about us. This is not how the earth works. This is not how the globe is working from since ages. It's just like we, the coming ages, and the people before us, everything combinedly makes us human. And it's just like, combinedly we make something up, like whether it's the culture, whether it's the fashion, whether it's everything. So just literally coming up on the platform, and not about Vonage I'm talking, it's about everything. Like, I'm just so tired of just hearing them talking about these kind of people who are just, these apps, they are so outdated, this thing so outdated, the fashion, oh my god, you're listening to this music, this is so vintage. Man, nothing gets old. It's just like literally
Yeah,
you enjoy every bit of it. Every people, every kind of person on the planet, they have their own taste, like in music, in fashion, in the apps and
yeah,
everything. But not everything is just, made by the present generation. It is made for them from the
yeah,
previous generation. So it's
yeah.
just like totally an absurd idea to just literally throwing the past and the experience and everything on the behind their back and just talking about the current. So current alone is not standing on their own basis, to be very honest.
You raise a really good point, because I had a lot of opinions I wanted to state today before we hopped into this video, but one that I didn't think of that you brought up that was really good was, who do you think, not always, like you said, some of it is the younger minds, the new startups and all that, the new tech companies that are doing some of this, but you are correct. Some of this newer technology, this new AI, these new, more innovative ways of doing things are being created by companies of the old that have been following this for decades, and now they're starting to improve and present new ways of doing the same thing. So you raise a really good point there. The other thing too for me was, like, the person basically was talking like nobody uses Vonage anymore. Well, that's clearly not the case because Vonage is still used by hundreds of thousands of customers. I think it's millions of customers at this point. The other thing that I wondered was, did they even watch my video and were they thinking of like the old Vonage? You know, like the old residential Vonage that everybody had back in the day, or did they realize this is like Vonage business? This is the new and improved Vonage that was recently purchased by Ericsson. That's like something different than the old Vonage phone that, you know, people had so that they could call somebody overseas and all that in their home or in their college dorm or in their like barracks in the military. This is something totally different. One thing I wanted to talk about, and it kind of adds to your point, is for those of you who are watching this video, what you may not know is at the time of this video, Vonage is 21 years old. So to take on the notion like some new guy or new business or new like 20 something year old fresh out of college is going to come up with new ideas and have all the answers that a 20 something year old company doesn't have or hasn't been thinking of or hasn't improved upon and seen how things have evolved and progressed. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I mean, I almost kind of wanted to message the guy back and be like, how old are you? Just like, so if he came back and he was like, oh, I'm 18, I'd be like, well, you don't really have a horse in this race, as we say.
People of like literally my age, I'm in my mid 30s, and there are people like in their 20s, they also talk the same. It's just like, trying to be like just wannabes in the new culture of just rejecting the past and just
Yeah.
embracing the new. So you cannot reject something. Like you cannot just literally throw everybody away. Then you have to just throw away your parents, your grandparents, your older friends, and your colleagues, and everybody, even your bosses who are paying you. So it's
Yeah.
just like very funny for me, because there are new people who are just fresh out of the college with just so much brilliant minds, but it works the same way. Like the people who have worked like 20 years ago, like 30 years ago, who started their businesses, they were fresh out of the college, they were somebody very new in the business, and they have worked
Yeah.
so hard throughout the years. And why don't you think that Vonage or some other provider, they have added some extra new staff just because they are some brilliant new younger generation,
Yeah.
so it's just like a combination of experience and combination of some great minds working together and working on ideas. Like Elon Musk, he's not your age, man, if you're 18 or 20 or something, but he
Yeah.
is a brilliant mind, and he has worked throughout the years. Ever heard his experience and the life experience he had shared, the personal and the professional. So he has worked so hard, learned a lot during this, kind of what you can say, going towards his destination. Like he's working for a goal, he has something to achieve. The problem with today's generation, they do not have any goals, they have nothing to achieve, uh, apart from TikTok and the views and the likes at all. So I'm
Yeah.
not just targeting any specific audience. It's just like, become a very strange norm for people to just like, not to just respect each other, respect the people who are just still there. It's about respect, it's about acceptance,
Yeah.
it's about just going along with everybody. It's just like you are just dividing the generations, dividing the people. Like this is what we are, this is who you are, and there's a big wall. I mean, what is the wall like, what it's gonna do? Just divide people, but for what? For no good. So it's just like very weird for me. I don't like the idea. I just like to be like everybody used to be, like in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and we were the teenagers in the early 2000s, and it was just like, so what you can say, the kindness and embracing everything and just being there for each other. I mean, nobody gets harmed by just caring for each other and just accepting
Yeah.
somebody else. It's simple as that. It's just like, everybody exists and they have to exist. Why do you think that you are just better than someone else? This is the point.
Well, and not to get philosophical in this video, but I guess
Mm,
we are going to get philosophical. If there's one thing that I've learned, and this is kind of like going to bat for Vonage a little bit, but then we're going to talk in favor of the person as well. I want to try to see if I can understand that person's perspective, but let's start with the philosophical thing. There is a difference between knowledge and understanding. or there's a
Hmm.
difference between being smart and having wisdom. And so I kind of look at it like for somebody to be like, oh, Vonage, they're old school and they're still around. They're still making billions upon billions of dollars. So they're doing something right. So to discredit them like, oh, they're old. No, I mean, there's something to be learned from that. For example, let's say that I was a VoIP service provider. I have no desire, for those of you watching, you know what I do for a living. I have no desire to be a VoIP service provider, but in this scenario, let's just say I wanted to be a VoIP service provider. If, say, the original founder of Vonage was like, hey, you sold a lot of Vonage for us and referred a lot of people. I heard you're going to be a VoIP service provider. I'm willing to take you out to lunch and tell you everything I know, from when I started the company. Would I be willing to sit down with that person? Hell yeah, because I could easily go find online all of the nuts and bolts and things of starting a VoIP service provider company, but the knowledge that I would get from that person, say the original founder of Vonage or the CEO of Vonage, that's something that's just beyond just the book smart stuff, if that makes sense. And so
Exactly.
that's kind of what made me laugh a little bit at the comment, because I'm thinking, wait a minute, like, let's just look at it from a rich technology group standpoint. You know how this goes, Sunita. We rely heavily on what? Our email. We rely heavily on our phone system. Probably our email and our software systems and web hosting software and stuff more than that. I'm sorry, like, I'm not looking for a startup that just started last year or the year before. I'm going and looking for a long-standing player that has credibility, that has long track record, and I know is going to be there tomorrow before I go and rest and rely my systems on their backbone or on their services. That's just me. Now let's play devil's advocate and flip it on its head, and let's talk in favor of what the person said. I will go as far as saying that to a certain degree, Vonage has taken some steps, I think a little late in the game, but Vonage has taken some steps right before and after their acquisition to try and compete with some of their competitors that,
Hmm.
in my opinion, these are my opinions, in my opinion, some of the competitors have done things by way of innovation above and beyond Vonage. Or we'll say, I won't say above and beyond Vonage, we'll say a little faster than
Hmm.
Vonage did as things have changed since the pandemic. So maybe that's what the person meant when they said Vonage business. You meant to say vintage business. This isn't the 90s. But even then, to Vonage's favor, Vonage had purchased like a big AI company that was like one of the leading companies in AI in the game. They went and bought them, and they did that because they knew that they needed to bring on serious AI to stay up, to be competitive and go along with the AI movement. So I don't know. Maybe this person will respond. And if you're watching this person that made that comment, I'm fine with you responding. We'll take your comments constructively. We're not mad at you at all for what you said. It's just it brought up an interesting conversation. Is Vonage really vintage, or are they still Vonage? I think it's a bit of both. You saw the interview that I did with Vonage's at the time current president of the company, Sunita, at Channel Partners, and he bragged about the fact that they were the original company to sell B2C, to sell voice over IP to the consumer market. And so you got to think they were the first company to sell VoIP on the open market in the United States, I think in the world, for all that we know. And so there's a lot to be learned from that as far as what customers are and aren't looking for and how customers react to new technology and stuff. So Vonage, I support you, and we still do consider you guys old school vintage. You're vintage, old school, new school in our book. So, any final thoughts, Sunita, before we wrap this one up?
I would like to add something that there is not something to just get offended or just mind something like we are just talking about, because there's nothing personal. Me and Prince, like you and I, just always like to reflect on things whenever we heard something, we read something. So it just like made me reflect on things that why we just discredit something which is like in the game from since a longer run. Like you said, they have learned thing a little later maybe, but they are just
Probably
trying
more
their
wisdom
best.
than the new
Exactly.
companies. Yeah.
And they are just trying their best, but again, it's just like we are never going to recommend something which is not vintage. So yes, it is just all just a little of our thoughts and the reflection we have done on the comment, and just literally something we think about. So it's just like, we have to respect the previous generation, we have to respect the present, and we have to be very careful for what we are leaving for the future generation. Some kindness, some acceptance, so that is going to go a
Yeah.
very longer way.
it kind of made me laugh because I thought like some of the oldest sodas that you know of,
Hmm.
they're still the best. By market share, they're still the best stocks to buy. What? Your Coca-Colas? Coca-Cola and Pepsi are still some of the best stocks that you can
They are.
own. And they're still, as far as I know, still some of the most widely, most drank soft drink beverages. But could you just imagine if like you were at a party or something and somebody was like, "Yeah, the drinks are here," and it was like a cooler full of ice and it
They are
had Coke?
vintage.
Yeah, it had Coke, Pepsi, and something that just came out like last week. We'll just call it like super soda or something that nobody's
Hmm.
ever heard of. And yeah, while the super soda may be good, could you just imagine if all these people at a cookout or a family gathering or whatever, they just, oh yeah, no, throw me the super soda. We're not gonna drink the Coke or Pepsi. That's vintage. That's old school. Like
Hmm.
what? And I mean, and you know, the funny thing is even to throw more to fan the flames here on this argument, people have tried to copy the recipes to Coke and Pepsi for years. Like there's documentaries on this, like scandals of people trying to
Yeah.
find out the secret recipe to Coke or the secret recipe to Pepsi. And people have tried to duplicate it for years and it just never comes close. So I don't know. I just thought that'd be a funny, interesting analogy, you know, but people are still drinking Pepsi and Coke. What, 50 years? Is it 180 years? I don't know how old it is. Like
Hmm.
I think it's older than that. But anyways, that's it for this video. If you're watching this video and you're interested in Vonage, Sunita and I and the rest of our team, we work with Vonage on a regular daily basis. We'll get you access to our special pricing. We'll even get one of our dedicated Vonage reps to show you a demo of their vintage but also new AI driven
Yeah.
powered platform. And then you can decide if it's too old for your business or if it will work for your business or not. As always, this is Prince Rich and Sunita Allister with Rich Technology Group, your go-to folks for the best deals on business phone and internet service in the United States. We'll catch you guys again in the next video.